if I have to use some of the adjectives that startup founders and the ecosystem players are using, they've given a thumbs up. They're very positive about it. They're optimistic about it. You know, essentially that there are a few announcements that are going to help the startups. So when the finance minister presented the budget 2021, of course, there was a sharp focus on digital transformation, the next phase of the economic recovery after the COVID-induced market recession. And more importantly, the focus was around the key sectors in the digital economy with increased spending for healthcare, education, employment generation in manufacturing and infrastructure. Last year we had seen about a dozen startups reach the unicorn status, and this year, early in the first 15 days, we saw another unicorn come out. But then it was overall a rough year for businesses and for startups, especially. The budget 2021 seems to recognize this and has offered a slew of incentives to mitigate this problem. While, of course, the budget was, a consumer sentiment damper, but the focus on Atmanirbhar Bharat and the six pillars of health and well-being, capital and infrastructure, inclusive development, human capital, innovation and R&D, and minimum government and maximum governance. This will allow more focus in internal growth and the startup community as well to grow faster. There's a clear focus on infrastructure. This will help create grassroots jobs and also provide minimum wages, and will also be helping in uplifting, the core lower income working population in the country as well. The finance minister Nirmala Sitharaman's announcements were welcomed by the startup community, and they are believed, these announcements are believed to provide some relief to the sector during the pandemic. While we are approaching towards probably the end of the tunnel, but still we don't know when the tunnel ends, right? There is light. India is slowly and gradually going back to normalcy as well. But I think these announcements are going to help. It has put, a huge toll on the startups, and the slowing down of the economy and lack of funding, the sustainability of startups had become a big concern. So the provisions like extension of tax holiday, exemption of capital gain, these will boost investments in the startup sector in the year to come. Lowering of the compliance burden was a much demanded request, or there was this demand that was long pending. It has come across now. Reducing residency requirements and setting up of seed fund corpus. These are all welcome moves to encourage new startups. However, the existing startups are the one who are struggling to stay afloat and survive. Uh, we would want, we would have seen, wanted to see much more announcements around that. But then there are a few more interesting announcements that I would want to talk about. To give a boost to the startup economy, India has proposed to extend the tax holiday claim for these companies for another 1 year. As also incentives or incentivize, sorry, one-person companies, or OPCs as they are called in the budget. OPCs, will now have no restrictions on paid-up capital and turnover. They will also be able to convert into any other type of company at any time. And more importantly, for NRIs and for non-resident Indians wanting to look at setting up offices in India, the residency permit for an Indian citizen to set up an OPC has been reduced, from 120 days to 120 days from 182 days. India is now allowing NRIs to come in, so this will bring a lot of new talent, or the great talent that is abroad back to India to start up their businesses in India as well. Another important announcement for startups, the finance minister revised the definition of small companies and increased their threshold for paid up capital to 2 crores and the turnover to 20 crores in order to ease compliance requirements. She also proposed to extend the eligibility period of claiming capital gain exemption for startup investments by 1 more year, which is a welcome move as well. Um, the easing of the threshold for capital requirement and turnover will reduce a lot of compliance burden on the startups. Um, Hence, giving them more time to think of their innovation and market expansion and reach as well. The government's move to collect relevant information on gig building and construction workers, as well as extend social security to gig workers and create a new platform which will uh, allow them to get social security is a very welcome move. This was also something that the industry has welcomed and was wanting for quite some time. One major headline announcement, of course, is about the increase in the foreign direct investment or the FDI limit for insurance sector from 49% to 74%. Insurance companies and insurance players have been finding it difficult to get growth capital, and the new FDI limits will help meet this deficit as well as bring more knowledge, expertise, from all over the world to probably come into the Indian market now. The insurance industry and the insurtech startup sector has unanimously welcomed this move, by the finance minister. Further, there are a few announcements around the International Financial Services Center, or the IFSC, at the Gift City in Gandhinagar, the first smart city of India, to help international funds relocate to India and avail tax exemption. The budget has proposed new tax incentives for units under the IFSC. This will also probably open up new funding avenues for startups, with the possibility of overseas VCs, probably looking at relocating to the IFSC as well. So this is a very welcome move, and will also, give a positive fillip to the startup sector. A major announcement again around the Gift City was of setting up of a finance tech or a fintech hub, which is definitely a welcome move going further, because that is another major requirement or demand that the startups had always been making, to have probably a one single fintech hub, which would definitely help more startups to base themselves in one single location, closer to larger banks and other fintech players as well. So this is definitely a very welcome move. More importantly, uh, the Gift City that is designed to develop as a multi-service fintech finance hub in Gujarat is going to help push the sector going further. So these are some of the major announcements. Of course, there is also an announcement by the government that it has set aside more than 3,000 crore for conducting a digital census in 2021, which is a unique announcement that was made, and which will probably also look at making Indian IT firms set to gain from this uh, particular announcement as well. Of course, while these were all the benefits and positives, there's always some discontent, or there are some uh, misses in every budget that the finance minister would present. One argument against the tax exemption announcement that was made by the finance minister was essentially around the uh, issue that usually startups do not make profits for the first 5 to 7 years. But if you look at the way and the growth trajectory of startups in India, and especially the way unicorns have come around, and this is something that we've discussed earlier in one of the columns in the earlier months, that the average time taken by a startup to become a unicorn in India is much lesser as compared to the global average. And this again means that these fast growing unicorns, or sunicorns as we call them, will definitely benefit and will also give the boost to the startup ecosystem and the startup culture in India as well.